for GitHub Actions. We can also just talk about, I guess, like the CI/CD workflow. I have found this online. It's probably something nice to look at. So CI/CD, it means continuous integration and continuous deployment. What does that actually like mean? Right, so the CI part, the continuous integration, that's basically like when you push up to a feature branch, we want to like make sure like code hygiene. So mainly like run PyTest for us, and then also like you might have a linter. So linters are just like they're just packages that like clean up your Python code, right? Like maybe it will like fix the spacing for you automatically. It can change like the order of the imports, and then so you can just like make sure that the linter is run, and it will clean up your code before you're then ready to merge it into like the main branch or whatever. So that's like continuous integration is like cleaning up your code and making sure there's not bugs. The CD is continuous deployment. Okay, so this is part of like what's called an agile workflow. And basically the idea is, like the olden days, we would basically, not me, but others would like make commits, maybe like finish a long feature over like 3 months or something, and then when it's ready, then test everything, or like maybe once a week, like test everything, and then finally when the whole project is done, like push all the code, like deploy all the code, and have it go live. And like with an agile workflow, the idea is no, you should be doing that stuff all the time, because if you wait for 3 months to deploy all your code, or you wait for a week to test all your code, there's going to be way more errors than you anticipated, and that last step of like deployment or fixing the test is going to take a lot longer than if you were doing this as you went along, right? The other idea is like you want to make it as easy as possible to take what you're writing in development and make it live, to then get feedback, right? Like it's like we want to see, do the users even care about this thing? Does this make their lives easier? So you want to make it very easy to take code in development and just make it, either run the tests to make sure that we're constantly testing, or to deploy the code to make it easy to continuously upgrade our website or our pipeline or whatever, right? And put that into production. So like one workflow you could think about is like, say you're coding in a production, like for a real dev team. You can imagine that you code, right? You fix some tests. So you get a story, right, in Pivotal Tracker or Trello or something like that. And then you would imagine that you kind of like go through the story, make sure that it does work, all the steps work as it's supposed to. You then run PyTest, but maybe sometimes it can take like 20 minutes. If you have a really large code base, it might take like 20, 30 minutes for all your tests to run. I'm talking like a million lines of code. So instead of running that on your computer and running all the tests on your computer, maybe you just run like the 5-10 relevant files, the test files, to make sure those all pass locally. And then if that looks good, then you push up to your feature branch. Okay? And when you push up to like feature / added prefect, think about like what would occur. Maybe it like builds the Docker image. Maybe it then pushes that Docker image to like ECR or something like that. Then you can imagine pulling down that image onto GitHub Actions, running the tests, running the linter. Depending on how complex this can be. So you just want to but the whole idea is we push to a feature branch. We want to run the tests and have that occur on GitHub Actions, on GitHub's environment. Why do we want to do that? Because it's just going to take too long to run it on our own. We want to go back to coding. So instead of wait for 20 minutes, you can just take a break, go get some coffee, take a 10-minute break instead of a 20-minute break, and then work on the next story, and then when this thing's done, look to see the results. Then if everything passes here, then you would make a pull request to the main branch. You can imagine that we have an event, like a GitHub action event, that says when someone makes a pull request, make sure we Slack people, or we tell people to take a look at it, right? And then finally, after someone makes the pull request to the main branch, you could imagine that we eventually merge it right after people look over it. This looks good. Then you could merge it to the main branch. And then what do you want to occur? Then you want to deploy it to production. So it's like the CI part happens when you push to a feature branch, run the tests. The CD, the continuous deployment part, can happen when you push to production. In practice, does it you generally see the CI part. In terms of whenever someone pushes to the main branch, we're just gonna deploy it. That varies by the dev team. So some teams might be no, actually once a week, that's when we deploy. Because we want to make sure QA, because really what can happen is it can be push to feature, the tests pass, the code looks good, then it goes to the QA team. Right? And the QA team, they try, Mia could probably tell you about this because she did some QA work. They try all crazy stuff because users do a bunch of crazy stuff and you can't anticipate what they're going to do. So you just can plug in, different things, make sure that that still this accounts for various scenarios. QA team might write their own tests beyond what the dev team may write. Then after it passes QA, then you can imagine it could go to a test environment where the DevOps team may look at it, make sure that everything matches their requirements, and then it gets finally productionized. So each of these workflows could basically be a different branch. Passes the feature branch, merge to QA, passes QA, merge to DevOps, passes DevOps, merge to production. Something like that. All right? And you could set up, what's nice is you can now use GitHub Actions to set a workflow, right, on each one of these steps. So that's kind of what we did. We're run the tests, and eventually we'll merge to production. You can use GitHub Actions for other use cases too. So that's what I slacked out that reading by Anna Geller. She worked for the Prefect. She was a Prefect developer. She has some really nice tutorials. And one of the things that she set up, and I kind of cloned, is this code base. So this is some Prefect code. You can see this. So this is a flow, right? Here's a flow of run a health check, look at some various attributes of our code base or something like that. And so it just runs the flow. And it has one task, hello from GitHub Actions. And the idea is okay, if you think about a Prefect, if you want to use this in production, it needs to be running on a computer. And typically you don't want it running on your laptop because you want to be able to close your laptop and Prefect to still be running. So, and you also want, the issues that can occur, you want this on a centralized computer. So we could deploy this to AWS, right? We could, and I think we had a lab where we did that. But what she shows how to do is actually how to use GitHub Actions to deploy this, which is, I think, pretty cool. So that's what happens. You can see that here. She sets up a cron job. It says I don't know how this, maybe every 42 days, or I don't know what this translates to. Run the following. So on a schedule, right? Do the following. So it's kind of what we were talking about. Check out the code base. Use Python 3.9 as part of your development environment. Install Prefect. And then here we log into Prefect. So we can talk about this in a second. It uses the secrets, Prefect API, Prefect Workspace. So basically uses your Prefect API key. And then finally what happens here, runs, just kicks off Prefect. Python flows healthcheck.py. So run this file. Okay? So, I wanted to try this out, so I did that, right? And all I had to do was I basically just forked her repository, and then if you go to, see, I go to actions. Oh no, I have to go to settings. So go to settings, and then you can go to secrets and variables, and then click on actions. And under here, you can see I set up 2 repository secrets. So the Prefect API key and the Prefect workspace. So now I go to my Prefect over here. I guess I showed you what happens. And here I have my API key, right? So I just clicked on it, found my API key, and I set that. I said Prefect API key equals whatever my API key is. All right, I did new repository secret. For Prefect workspace, and she explains this in the article, it's just these 2 words. So for me, it's Jeff Jigsaw Labs IO /tutorials. And I just went over to workspace and set it to that thing. Prefect Jeff Jigsaw Labs IO /tutorials. Okay? Now I can go to actions, and I see all the actions that she kind of defined here. All right? I didn't actually try. So this one will run on a schedule, right? So I haven't seen. So I haven't seen it run yet, but that's pretty cool. She also set up this one, which is called Run Flow, and this one's pretty interesting. I can click on Run a Workflow, and now I can actually choose which one of the workflows I want to run. So there's different Prefect workflows. We have this health check one, hello subflow, parameterize, whatever. She's just showing that you can have different ones that she can run. And I can select it here, which is pretty cool. And then I can click, I'll do the health check one, and click Run Workflow. And now you can see it's going to start in a second. If I refresh. So now it's running. And it moves through these steps, right? So it's downloading stuff, etc. Installing pip, installing the package. Then it's going to log into Prefect, and then it will finally run the flow. Let's do a little bit. Okay, it's about to do it. So now you can see it's getting my Prefect API key, right? It's setting that in the environment. Now it's setting up my workspace, right? And now it's finally running the flow, and you can see that. And this is pretty cool because it's a flow run happy sloth view at here. I can actually just click here and see it in my account. All right, or I can go here and probably just look for the word health. There it is, and it's this happy sloth thing. Let's see if I don't know if this was the most recent one. Name health check. Oh, flow runs are 2. There we go. Task runs are 2. Arrogant honeybee. Yeah, and happy sloth. Yeah, so this was just 1 minute ago. Right? So that's pretty cool. So how did she do this? It's this run a flow. And you can see on workflow dispatch. So this is on me clicking the button, right? I think it might also be like an API thing. And here it has inputs. And it has like the Prefect version and the flow. And this has, and what this does is this, remember when I clicked on GitHub Actions, and I clicked on Run Flow, and I clicked on Run Workflow. Remember, I have these inputs. These are the inputs. So she's saying, on Workflow Dispatch inputs, specify the Prefect version for flows, Prefect version for flows, required true, there's a little star thing, default, gives me a default value, but I can change it. Okay? Branch, use workflow from branch master. I guess that's already filled out. And then here's the other thing is now the flow to run. require true, type is choice. Okay, here the type is string, here the type is choice, so that gives me a drop down of which flow to run. So she basically created a little form for me to fill out, and then once I do that and I click it, what does it do? It checks out my code. It's installs Python 3.9, installs Prefect. It's specifying the right version, and this is kind of cool. GitHub event.inputs.prefect version, that comes from up here. GitHub events inputs prefect version. And I guess it's just that, the prefect version. So she takes that prefect version, and that's what she'll install. This comes from my secrets. And then what am I going to run? Set the Python path to my code base, and then flows GitHub events inputs.flow. That comes from back here, inputs.flow. And then whatever one of those I chose, that's the file, flow slash, right? That file is what she'll run. Okay? This pipe thing here, that's just for multi-line commands. So there's two commands we're running, export and Python. So to be able to do this across multiple lines, she puts a pipe first. That's all that's happening here. All right? And you can see, you just click on it now, it runs the workflow, and because we have my API keys here, right, my Prefect account knows about it and sees each of these flow runs. So it's a really nice kind of idea. You're using GitHub Actions, the computer that we get with GitHub Actions to run my pipeline. It's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty cheap and easy way to get a pipeline running. Questions about that? How does that feel to y'all? I may turn this into a lab, so it's good to try to think if you understand it. All right. Yeah, definitely take a look at this. I put this in the Slack, so if you have time, take a look at this and try to see it. I think it's good just to see what you can do with various GitHub Actions. Cool. All right, I'll let you